Welcome to The Explainer. You know, the last few months of 2025 were an absolute whirlwind in the world of artificial intelligence. Seriously, it wasn't just progress anymore. It felt like an all-out war. So today, we're going to break down that chaotic, brilliant, and kind of crazy final stretch of the year.
And to really set the stage, let's just start with this quote from one of the most trusted voices in tech, MKBHD. When OpenAI finally dropped its new video generator for everyone to use, this was his take. Just 2 words: terrifyingly real. And that feeling, it pretty much captures the moment perfectly and kicks off our entire story.
Because look, this wasn't just about a few cool new creative tools. No way. This was a series of high-stakes, head-to-head battles between the absolute biggest names in tech, all fighting for control over the future. So in this explainer, we're going to look at the evidence and figure out who actually came out on top.
Okay, let's dive right in, starting with the most visible battleground of them all, AI that can create video just from a text prompt. The race to create perfect, photorealistic motion was officially on, and it got intense.
So in this arena, you basically had 2 main contenders step into the ring. On one side, you had OpenAI's super-hyped Sora 2, which was every bit as flashy and imaginative as we all hoped. But on the other side, you had Google's powerhouse update, Veo 3.1, and it was focused on something different. It was all about making sure the video actually made sense and, followed the basic laws of physics.
So when they put 16 of the top models to the test head-to-head, the final verdict was, well, it was a little surprising to some people. Google's Veo 3.1 was actually crowned the winner. Now, don't get me wrong, Sora 2 created some undeniably beautiful, stunning visuals, but it was Veo's incredible consistency and reliability that made it the top choice, especially for any kind of professional work where you absolutely needed to be predictable.
But here's the thing. Even with a clear winner, we still weren't quite at perfection. Not yet. MKBHD's full review really pointed this out, that for all its power, AI still messes up the small stuff. Things like hands or how objects interact with each other. It all falls into that uncanny valley, right? That creepy feeling you get when something is almost perfectly real, but just a little bit off, and it reminds you you're not looking at reality.
Okay, so let's move to the next battleground, because underneath all these video generators are the large language models, the actual brains of the operation. And let me tell you, here, the fight for cognitive supremacy was even fiercer.
Now, on paper, it really looked like Google's new Gemini 3 model was the runaway champion. It was just crushing all the standard benchmark tests. But in the real world, a totally different story started to emerge. People who actually use these things every day, developers, writers, they consistently said they preferred Anthropic's model, Claude. Why? Because its answers just felt more natural, more nuanced, more human.
But the biggest shocker in the entire AI space? It didn't come from Gemini or Claude. It came from a new paper out of Google's DeepMind. They announced a brand new model that got better results than its competitors while being trained on 100 times less data. That was a seismic event, a total game changer.
So how on earth is that even possible? Well, the answer is this really revolutionary new approach called a world model. Instead of just feeding an AI endless amounts of text, you first have it watch videos, countless hours of them. It learns the basic rules of our world. Stuff like gravity, the fact that objects don't just disappear, cause and effect. Once it has that fundamental understanding, it can learn new skills so much more efficiently. And this could solve one of AI's biggest problems, that we might actually be running out of high-quality data to train on.
Okay, so this explosion in raw brain power is finally letting AI break out of the chat window and actually start doing things in the real world. And that brings us to the next massive trend from late 2025. The rise of AI agents.
So an AI agent isn't just a chatbot that gives you information. It's an autonomous doer. You give it a high-level command, something simple like, hey, book me a flight, and it actually opens your web browser, goes to the right websites, fills out all the forms, and does the whole multi-step task for you. It just brings you in at the very end for the final confirmation.
So here's the really crucial point. Top analysts are predicting that by 2026, which is right around the corner, over 50% of the tasks that we do right now by clicking around on a computer, they might be handed off to these AI agents instead. That is a fundamental change in how we use our computers. So with all of this incredible power being built up by just a few giants, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, it brings up this huge, almost existential question for the thousands of smaller AI companies out there. How do you even survive?
Tech analyst Matt Wolf put this warning in the most blunt way possible with this quote: "The fear for every single startup is that their entire business, everything they've built, could just be wiped out overnight when one of the big guys decides to add their core product as just a minor new feature."
And this fear? It became the #1 question for anyone trying to build a business or get funding in the AI space. Answering this one question was the ultimate make or break test for whether you were going to survive or not. So what's the answer? Well, the consensus is you have to build a moat, a really strong defensive strategy. And the most important piece of that moat, by far, is getting your hands on unique, proprietary data. This creates something called a data flywheel. It's this amazing cycle where more users means you get more data, which makes your AI smarter, which then attracts even more users. It's a self-reinforcing advantage that some simple little app built on someone else's tech can never, ever have.
So after all these huge battles, the fight for video, the war for intelligence, the struggle just to survive as a startup, what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean for you, the person just trying to make sense of it all?
At the end of the day, the single biggest trend driving every single thing we've just talked about is this. The cost to produce artificial intelligence is not just getting cheaper, it's absolutely plummeting. We're talking at an exponential rate, by about 40 times every single year.
This incredible price drop is the engine of the entire AI revolution. It's what takes the science fiction of last year and turns it into the everyday tool of tomorrow. It basically democratizes access to a kind of power that was just unimaginable a very short time ago.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. As this exponential curve just keeps going, pushing intelligence to new heights for practically zero cost, it forces us to ask a really fundamental question about the future we're building. Who is really in control here? Us, the creators, or the creation? It's something to think about as this incredible story keeps unfolding.